So we are here in Prague in the final day of the EAHAD Congress. It were 3 very fine days, lots of information, and we are here with Olivia, Thomas, myself to talk a little bit about what were the highlights of this Congress. Olivia, for you?
It was my first time at EAHAD. It was quite impressive, lots of things to intake. I enjoyed the first session, the session on gene therapy, especially the patient's perspective on how to select treatments. It was David Page presenting. It was a very, very nice talk, and that made me think of the importance of the MOU between the EHC and EAHAD and how the whole community needs to hear the patient's perspective. That brings me back also to the message Thomas Sagnier sent on Wednesday about also carrying the message of the shared decision-making process and to have a sustainable conversation, and also to be, as a community, helping and accompanying countries that are less privileged. And that brings me to the last lecture. I just heard about Philippe de Merlouz and Africa. He just got the prize for the Arrowsenius Lecture Prize, and so he gave us a talk on Africa and how the situation is there. So brings me back to the patient's involvement and how it is important for us to be here and to be in any conference and any conversation with the healthcare professionals. That would be my highlights.
Yeah. For me, the highlights is it was a session related with inhibitors. I think it was a very important session just to focus on what are our current status in terms of inhibitors. We started with explanation of what is inhibitors. How can we try to avoid inhibitors if we can? And of course, RTI was one of the issues, especially because we have new treatments, new technologies that are evolving inhibitors in a new way of treatment. Should or not the kids do in RTI during the use of a concomitant new technology? And the result was that we need more data, more solid data, more clinical data to understand better that kind of process. And we talk also about the new drugs, what are right now the current effect on our community, what are our community expecting for that kind of new technologies, new hopes. And it's a new word for people with inhibitors, really, and we are very excited, and our main focus is simply to everybody have access to this kind of new treatments, they have a better quality of life.
So from me, I don't want to develop what you just said very bluntly, so maybe I will focus on the SLAM session, the last one. We have two or three very interesting talk about the first one is about Mark van den Berg, Marieke van den Berg, about the based on the data from the network. She said that the risk of inhibitors is before 75 exposure. That means that beyond that, the risk of it is infinitesimal. And that's something, I mean, important in terms of, for the patients to know that the risk for them, the risk of inhibitors is established before 75 exposure. The second thing is about the registry in the Netherlands about the life expectancy and morbidity for the patient with haemophilia in the Netherlands. And what it said is if life expectancy increased dramatically in the recent years, it still is an issue to live with haemophilia. And the patient with severe haemophilia has a life expectancy inferior than the general population. It's almost the same for moderate and actually the life expectancy is better for mild haemophilia, but for severe, there is an issue. And the last thing is just an awareness about the intracranial hemorrhage for patients with haemophilia. And That's something that doctors across Europe and especially across Europe has to address, because it seems that we don't have the good tools and we don't know how to prevent intracranial hemorrhagia, especially for patients with severe hemophilia. So we have some job to do. I do think that thanks to the collaboration between EHC and EAHAD, we can improve our way to change life for patients with rare bleeding disorders.
Yeah, I just want to focus, because that was there was a very interesting session about the registry, and the main focus point that they talked about is doctors are always giving data for collecting data, but they are not receiving the feedback from that data, and that's very important for them to know how to manage their patients.
You mean the patients?
Yeah, to manage their patients.
Yeah.
They have a national perspective in each country, so it was a very important issue that we debated here.
And what brings me back to the educational needs for the patients, when you speak about the intracranial bleeds, for instance, I'm not even sure that patients know the high level of risk they have when they're severe hemophiliacs, and they probably don't know the symptoms, for instance. So maybe very simple tools on how to educate and train families and patients about those symptoms, intracranial bleeds, hemoperitoneum bleeds, very difficult for me to pronounce, but all those internal bleeds that are major and very, very dangerous for the population, we should train them also on that, because it doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens. And when it happens, we should know what to do.
And that's all. Greetings from Prague.
Thank you.
Thank you.